can't deny it, this is such a classy looking vehicle.
Now you might be thinking, this is a Mercedes, so the mechanical engineering must be fantastic, right? Well,
I'm about to really upset the Mercedes-Benz fans out there. Hey, you want to know everything that can go wrong with these? Do you want to see how they're aging, what they like to live with, what they like to drive? Most importantly, do you want to know if you should buy one or not? Well, we're going to answer all of those questions and so many more, but first up, we need to show you what you might be potentially getting yourself into. First up, a whole new generation of GLC was released in 2023. However, in this video, we're just going to be focusing on the 2015 to 2022 first generation, which also received a substantial update in 2019. More on that in a second. Body styles, there are two, the wagon and the less popular coupe. Now, engine-wise here in Australia, initially a 2-litre turbo petrol and a 2.1-litre turbo diesel were offered, both available in a couple of different states of tune, depending on the model, trim spec, all that sort of stuff. Also in 2017, a 3-litre turbo diesel V6 was offered. Now you might be thinking, hang on a sec, what about the awesome twin turbo V6 and V8 models in the AMGs? Well, yeah, but they're so awesome that they deserve their very own video. And if you happen to own one of them, let us know in the comments. Now, all GLCs feature a 9-speed auto, and the majority send power to all 4 wheels via Mercedes 4MATIC all-wheel drive systems, although rear-wheel drive versions are available in the base spec GLC 200. Just on the various models, as you can see, the mechanical package defines the model name. However, we're talking Mercedes-Benz, so it's not as simple as that. There's a seemingly endless array of different option packs and accessories available for these things. For example, this GLC 250 features an AMG pack, a comfort pack, a vision pack, and a 6-pack. Or maybe that's just me. Now, it's critical to know which of these option packs are fitted to the car you're looking at because it can define the price. Now, speaking of price, the very cheapest examples of these are swapping hands for around about $20,000. At the other end of the spectrum, and again excluding the AMG models, you're looking at around about $105,000. Now, if you bought one of these things brand new, you might want to skip ahead a little bit because my God, they can lose some money in depreciation. For example, let's take a 2016 250D that here in Australia was asking around about $75,000 when brand new. Currently, are swapping hands for even $25,000. That's a drop of $50,000 in depreciation. And to put that into perspective, an equivalent Lexus RX, they're swapping hands for around about $10,000 more. But look, no matter what car you're looking at buying, when it comes to car finance, you've got to hit that driver link down there. Driver pretty much exists to get you the very best possible package when it comes to car finance, and we've never experienced an easy way to sort it. Hit that link down there if you do need more information, and if you sort your car finance via that link, you're going to get a free $150 fuel voucher. Now, here's a fun fact. This is actually built on pretty much the same platform that underpins the Mercedes-Benz C-Class, but don't for a second think that this is just like a jacked up C-Class wagon. It does vary in dimensions subtly here and there. And when it comes to looks, look, I'm not persuaded by all the image and brand name bullshit that comes with premium brand names, but I can't deny it, this is such a classy looking vehicle. I should mention as well the AMG pack, it adds 20-inch wheels, some sporty body kit stuff and sports suspension. And yeah, for me, especially in black, it looks the business. Although, a friend of mine that owns an AMG GLC 63 has an issue with these. The problem is, these look nearly identical to the AMG models. You've got to be either a Mercedes anorak or a true car fan to spot the difference. That's fantastic if you own one of these. Not so good if you're like my mate that owns the GLC 63. Now, when it comes to exterior features, here's the standard stuff that you're going to get, but obviously each example is going to vary depending on trim spec and option pack fitted. Now inside, even in its earliest, lowest spec form, the list of standard features is honestly so extensive it would take us forever to take you through it all. So instead, here's a graphic explaining the bare basics. And here's just a taste of what you can get with the various option packs. Just know whatever feature you want, chances are there is a GLC out there that can deliver. Now, if you do need all of the specifics when it comes to the different trim specs and equipment, all of that sort of stuff, head to ReDriven.com and check out the completely free GLC cheat sheet. It will answer all of your questions. However, it's unfortunately not all good news in here. There are a few issues. For example, if you want Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, if you're looking at a post-2019 model, you should be sorted. Pre-2019, well, some of them have it, sometimes it has been installed as an option, or maybe you're going to have to pay to get it installed. But even then, some owners have complained about the actual functionality if it has been retrofitted. If you're looking at one of these and it has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, just make sure it all works correctly. And then there are other, let's say, quality issues with the interior, but we'll cover those in a sec. The good news is actually using this native tech is superb. There's this constant competition between the premium brands to offer the best functionality with the most features, and that means that pretty much all of the systems are fantastic to use. Which is best is going to be completely subjective. Just know that in this particular car, excellent to use all of this tech. Now, aside from the features, the actual materials used in here, and therefore the vibe that it provides, can vary substantially between the different option packs. Look, obviously these will never ever feel cheap and nasty, but find an example like this with the Comfort or AMG pack, let alone the ultra exclusive Mercedes Designo option packs, and they can feel seriously premium. I mean, look at this thing. It is stunning inside. I adore this timber veneer look, all the metal trinkets everywhere. I think they're called jewelry in the car game. The jewelry is fantastic. The design, just superb. Ergonomics, everything is spot on. Where the controls are for the infotainment, perfect. Loads of adjustability to the seats. The seats themselves, super comfortable. Just a beautiful interior. I mean, even as far as wear and tear goes, in this particular car, this has got nearly 160,000 kilometers on it. It's from 2019. It is used all of the time. Wear and tear is excellent. Steering wheel has lost a little bit of texture, but that can be restored. The leather on the seats, still super supple. Everything feels solid, like it's just great wear and tear. But it's one thing to look stunning in here and needs to be practical. Is it? Yes, it is. Door bins, massive. Maybe some of the biggest door bins I've ever seen in a car. Little cubby hole here with 2 cup holders and a spot for your phone right there. Got a spot for sunglasses. What does the owner wear? He wears Oakleys. Well done. Pop them back there. You've got a bisexual center cubby hole here because they open both ways. One little issue with that, but I've just noticed it's kind of moving around a little bit. So when you're driving, you put your arm there. That's a bit annoying. Excellent sized glove box with a separate shelf there. Little net to keep your fish in if you go fishing down there. And that's it for practicality up front. Now in the back seat, I'm exactly 3 centimeters taller than another Mercedes-Benz entity, Formula One driver George Russell. This is in my driving position. Excellent, fantastic, heaps of knee room, good amount of foot room. The seats are so comfortable. Some people have complained that there's not enough under thigh support in the seat. I think they're wrong. Stop complaining about first world issues. The seat's very comfy. Even as far as the feeling and ambience back here, because the glass house is large and this one has the moonroof or the panoramic roof, it just feels spacious even though the interior is black and you should feel a bit more claustrophobic. Excellent. Even as far as wear and tear goes, as I mentioned before, this thing does get used on a daily basis. Obviously, every GLC's wear and tear is going to vary from example to example, but wear and tear in this one, superb. The seats, super plush still, no marks on the door cards, back to the seats good. A few minor scratches back there, just needs a bit of a clean. Excellent for wear and tear. And as far as practicality goes, now this one's interesting. Some owners complain that there aren't enough features in the back seat for, say, their kids, no charging points or anything like that. That will vary depending on the option pack that is fitted to the car. In this one, you've got 2 mat pockets, you've got your own air vents, you've got excellent sized door bins, pull down armrest with little felt lined cubby hole in here, and 2 flip out cup holders. So practicality, decent, but yeah, charging points would be nice. Oh, one more thing I forgot to tell you about Mercedes-Benz interiors that I personally love. The fact that the air vents, they have like a little click point to put it in the middle. That turns me on more than you know. Now, cargo space in the boot is interesting. It's rated at 550 litres, which is the same as the BMW X3 and Audi Q5, but obviously that can extend more if you fold the seats down, and excellently the seats fold pretty much flat and there's no load lip. Only drama in this particular car, this button to fold these seats down doesn't work at the moment. When it comes to driving, I'm about to really upset the Mercedes-Benz fans out there. But first of all, I have to add some context. Look, I've been so fortunate to drive hundreds and hundreds of cars, and due to that, brand identity and image are just completely lost on me. I simply don't care if a car is wearing a premium badge or not. The fact that this car has a 3-pointed star on the steering wheel, meh, so what? But look, back to the GLC. To drive, this is incredibly good. It does all of the premium SUV stuff that you'd ever want it to do. But so does the more recent Kia Sportage and Hyundai Tucson. Now you may scoff at that, but if you remove the brand image bullshit, the Kia and the Hyundai ride and handle just as well as this. if not possibly better, because they are tuned for our local conditions. And then the sense of refinements like NVH levels, things like that, this pretty much is on par with the Hyundai and Kia. That's not a bad thing because they are excellent. Even as far as dynamics go, this is on par with the Kia and the Hyundai. In fact, I think a Mazda CX-5 just has better steering than this, although that is one of the best steering SUVs in this class for this sort of money. As far as the engine and whole driveline goes, yeah, this does a fantastic job. It does what it should. It's no standout, but it's not disappointing at all. Obviously, you can change the different driving characteristics of the car with the different driving modes, but how often are you going to do that? Look, overall, the GLC is utterly wonderful to drive. It nails all of the beautiful subjective feels stuff. The problem is, I'm just not sensing the depth of quality and character that the brand tries so hard to sell us on. But you know what? Let's get back to an area where the GLC really shines: safety. But to take you through the safety features, it does seem only right that we have someone from this car's country of origin explain.
Zu den Sicherheitsmerkmalen gehören 9 Airbags, ABS, elektronische Bremskraftverteilung, Bremsassistent, elektronische Stabilitätskontrolle, Traktionskontrolle, autonomes Bremsen und adaptiver Bremsassistent sowie die Pre-Safe-Technologien von Mercedes-Benz wie Tortwinkelassistent, Aufmerksamkeitsassistent und einige mehr. Beispiele werden mit dem Fahrerassistenzpaket Plus ausgestattet, dessen Erklärung hier viel zu komplex ist.
Now, just when everything was looking pretty rosy for the GLC, we come to the what goes wrong section. Okay, let's start with the exterior. Okay, first up, let's talk about water ingress, and let's start with the tailgate. Apparently, water can find its way in here. When the tailgate opens, it drips from the tailgate and the water plays havoc with all of the electronics. Next up, quite a few owners have complained of water gathering in the footwells. Some claim that it's water leaking through the firewall. Others say it's related to the sunroof. Either the drainage holes aren't cleared properly or the sunroof just leaks in general. Others just say it's a problem with build quality. The drama is, no matter where the water leaks in from, it's going to play absolute havoc with electronics. But the really scary thing with this is that you might not have any idea that there's a problem until it's too late. Because there's so much insulation and underlay under the carpet, that hides the water. Actually, many owners have stated that the first indication they had that there was a problem was that the electronics start freaking out. Unfortunately, by then, it's probably all too late. Also on the subject of electronic gremlins, there are reports that power windows can play up, the door locks can play up, the power mirrors can play up, the powered tailgate can play up, the tail lights can play up, as can the headlights. Actually, just on the tail lights and the headlights, just like this car, they can gather condensation and fog up. Now, to fix this condensation problem generally requires an entire new headlight or tail light, and Andrew, that owns this car, has been quoted over $1,500 for a replacement headlight. Now we come to suspension issues. Apparently, many of these, especially GLC 300s, can have an issue where the suspension hits the bump stops, even over moderately small speed humps. And then GLCs fitted with air suspension, they can have some issues with, yep, you guessed it, electronics, but also the componentry can fail. The good news is when the air suspension is working perfectly, many owners claim that the ride is phenomenal. And then we have the well-documented cases of squeaky brakes, the actual tires rubbing within the wheel arch and the front of the car kind of crab walking all over the place. Now, some owners have had these issues resolved under warranty by the dealership. Other owners have been denied warranty claims by the dealership. But then there are owners that have had it fixed under warranty, but then the issue comes back even with new parts. Actually, just on the dealerships, some owners have had fantastic experiences and others absolutely terrible experiences with Mercedes-Benz dealerships. And then we come to fuel efficiency. Loads of owners have claimed they cannot get their car anywhere near the claimed amount. Can you? Look, overall, at least for the exterior, I just find it so disappointing that a vehicle that's supposed to be a premium product from a prestige brand can suffer from all of these issues. Not to mention the fact that the parts and often labour, they also charge a huge premium to fix the bloody thing. But you know what is a premium product but doesn't charge a fortune and works beautifully? It's WiperTech wiper blades. Hit the link down there to get 15% off and free express shipping on some of the most kick-ass wiper blades we've ever used. Also, if you are in the market for one of these, make sure you check the entire exterior, especially underneath, especially under the front, because plenty of these are bought by people that are very cashed up, and they have about as much driving ability as they do mechanical sympathy. Now inside, it's actually pretty good news. Nothing really goes wrong in here. I'm kidding, of course. Plenty can go wrong in here. Let's start with the electronics. Basically, if it has electricity running to it, there's an owner complaining that they've had an issue with it. And as you can see, most things have electricity running to it. Let's start with the infotainment system, which yes, is brilliant to use, and when it works, is fantastic. But apparently it can just glitch out and not operate as intended. And then the car can just suffer from other weird software issues like the electric park brake not working, the windscreen washer jets just firing off randomly. A couple of owners even complained that their electronic seat adjustments started to adjust on their own. Then some buttons can just stop working intermittently or just stop working at all. But annoyingly, to fix this, many owners have claimed that the car just needs a reflash to its ECU. The problem there is it can take up to 9 hours. Sometimes it has to be done at a Mercedes-Benz dealership. And if the car's out of warranty, they're going to charge Mercedes dealership rates. And that means it's going to be expensive. Next up, the Artico leather on the seats. Apparently it can lose its color prematurely, the leather can crack or even tear, quite often all three of those things. The issue here is some owners have had this repaired under warranty and others haven't been so lucky. Also, many owners have complained about just random rattles coming from the pillars, the dash, the cargo area. Loads of owners have had these rattle issues. If you have rattle issues in your GLC, jump on the owners groups or the forums, because chances are there will be a thread there showing you how to fix your specific problem. Actually, just on the owners, Andrew, mate, thank you so much for lending us your GLC. You're a legend. Also, GLC owners groups and forums. Without you guys, we couldn't have made this video. Thank you so much for all of your input. Also, just on the owners, we do need to make it abundantly clear that there are thousands and thousands of owners out there, just like Andrew, that have never had a problem with their GLC and probably will never have an issue. But if you want to dig deeper into some of these common issues and problems, reading the problems and issues on the forums and owners groups, it can be quite confronting. Now, if all of that wasn't scary enough, mechanically, what can go wrong with these? Well, I can't tell you, I'm afraid, because I'm not a qualified mechanic, but Jim is.
I'll start with a 2-litre petrol in these. Look, the biggest problem in these is a very well documented and very common problem with the pistons breaking in half. They crack around the ring glands and the gudgeon pin. It's a huge problem. Primarily on the 15 to 17 year models, more common there, but definitely not unheard of in the later models too. The turbochargers on these two, look, they are somewhat problematic, and there's nothing replaceable there. So if you have any issues with the boost control or the turbo itself, it's just replace the whole unit. The water pump on these, it's a fairly common problem too. They often leak. Now the ignition coils on these, they don't actually fail on their own. Just with scheduled spark plug changes, typically when you try to remove them, they have welded themselves down in the spark plug tubes, and they just often fall apart when you're changing them. So if you're doing plugs, it's highly likely you're going to need coils as well. PCV issues on these are fairly common. They have upper and lower oil separators. Now if you have a problem with the lower one, which is located on the side of the block, it is a nightmare to get at, and a whole bunch of stuff has to come out just for access. The 2.1 litre diesel, this is very widely used in a bunch of different Mercs. Now I know you've all heard me bang on about how shit European cars are with timing chain issues. Well, the timing chains in these are actually remarkably good. Occasionally there might be an issue with the tensioner, but overall they are actually very reliable. The reason they're reliable, it's a very short chain and it only drives the camshafts. Everything else, the balance shafts, the oil pump, the vacuum pump and the fuel pump, they are all gear driven at the back of the engine. So the chain has much less work to do and subsequently actually lasts. I should also mention that all of those other accessories that are gear driven, they are located at the back of the engine quite low. And if you have any issues with those, they are a nightmare to access. But thankfully, failures with those are not too common. A fairly common problem with these is leaking lower injector seals. Now when they do leak, they just pump a whole bunch of carbon and crap all through the top of the engine. We call it the Black Death. And if that is left for too long, they are almost impossible to remove. So if you hear a chuffing noise, yeah, get it fixed as soon as you can. But the thing is, you don't often hear the chuffing noise because they're so well insulated. But yeah, they do leak often. Have your mechanic check it. Another fairly common problem we see on these engines is the coolant outlet that houses the fuel filter. Just the seals in there break and leaks coolant out. It's pretty easy to fix and fairly cheap too. And they do have their fair share of EGR and DPF complications, but overall, a very reliable package. The 3-litre V6 diesel now, look, overall, a pretty reliable engine. Most of the serious issues are all located basically in the same place, in the V of the engine. The turbo sits there, the oil cooler sits there, and all of those do have some problems. The turbos on these, they can be problematic, and it's usually something to do with the variable geometry boost control. Typically you just have to replace the whole turbo. Oil leaks in this part of the engine are pretty common, and one of the oil leaks comes from the pipe that goes on the front of the turbo. When the oil leaks from there, it drips right onto the inlet manifold actuator. And that kills the actuator. And when the actuator stops working, or the linkages start to fail and all the butterflies seize, and you can't repair the actuator, you have to put a new one in it. And the manifolds with all those butterflies and actuators, well, Merc will sell you them for thousands each, but there are aftermarket suppliers that can provide rebuild kits for those, much cheaper way to fix it. Another leak in the V of these engines comes from the oil cooler. Now when the seals leak on the oil cooler, that usually fills up the V and then starts dribbling out the back of the V through a little fairly well designed drain hole and dribbles down the back of the engine. Now heads up with this thing, a lot of times that's misdiagnosed as a leaking rear main oil seal. That might be leaking as well, but it's more likely coming from that drain hole at the back of the block. Look, overall with these things, all the engine options have their fair share of typical Euro issues with feeble engine bay plastics, switch and sensor issues, and just the usual coolant and oil leaks, but typically on par for anything else in this sector. Transmissions and drive lines in these things are all relatively reliable, especially if well serviced, but overall shouldn't have too many problems with them.
So if you should buy one of these, really comes down to what you prioritize when it comes to car ownership. If brand identity, a sense of prestige, and a luxurious driving experience trump things like build quality, reliability, value for money, and longevity, then okay, as long as you find the perfect example and you've got enough money to maintain it, to keep it on the road, it's a very, very cautious yes from us. There's no denying that when these are working perfectly, they are a superb SUV. However, the issue that we have not only with the GLC, but pretty much every prestige brand, is that they all ask a premium when it comes to buying and maintenance. They market themselves as a superior product, and yet they don't actually offer any better build quality or reliability over the majority of other brands. Once upon a time, prestige manufacturers like Mercedes-Benz built premium cars of the highest quality. However, these days, it feels like those same manufacturers, yes, including Mercedes-Benz, just produce superb marketing while not offering any better quality or reliability than the vast majority of every other brand. Look, we're not saying that there's no substance to this at all. We just think when it comes to prestige brands, you're buying image first and quality second. But if you still must have a European SUV, but you don't care about image all that much, maybe check one of these out. But if you weren't to buy that or this, what would you buy instead? Let us know in the comments. See you next time.
Another fairly common problem with these, although it's not very that serious. Wow, a little bit. This is the one.
Well, we're going to answer all of those questions and so many more, but first of all,